dear esteemed viewers of this Civic Space TV, welcome to this edition of the Inter-University Debates Championship Season 2. The topic today is one that is catchy, is one that is timely, and it goes the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda. What are the bottlenecks? Today, we are hosting a team from Group B, and that is made up of students from the mighty Kyambogo University. Let me give you a background to these conversations. The Center for Constitutional Governance, that is CCG, is a non-governmental organization based in Uganda with the key vision of upholding constitutionality, the rule of law, and legislative independence of the legislature. Under its recently rejuvenated inter-university championship debates, CCG is bringing students from the main universities across the country to debate matters of civic importance at the university, across the nation, and indeed across the globe. This is done mainly with a view of nurturing a group of students who debate, who engage in politics at the best level, but also, given our history as a country, people that will know that it's better to debate, it's better to sit down and talk, it's better to handle issues amicably than resolve arms, as has been the case in the past. Today, the panel from Kyambogo is one of the oldest institutions of higher learning in the country. And the panel today is made up of 3 gentlemen and a lady. We have Mr. Masawi Ivan. He is a third-year student of Bachelors of Mechatronics and Biomedical Engineering. We are also joined by Osutaru Namirembe Gloria, a student of Bachelors of Community Development and Social Justice. The third is Otahunga Wangusa, a second-year student of Bachelor of Arts with Education. And finally, we are joined by Mr. Kituuka Marvin, a third-year student of Bachelors of Microfinance. It's this panel that we hope to give us a discussion, and from this panel, we shall get a finalist who will represent Kyambogo at the semi-finals that will be held after this particular round. So basically defined, civic liberties means the freedom of citizens to exercise rights such as freedom of speech, assembly without unwarranted or arbitrary interferences. On December 16th, 1966, the General Assembly of the United Nations ratified and assented to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Shortly, it's called the ICCPR. On March 23rd, 1976, the instrument, as it's sometimes also called the Bill of Rights, came into force. As the blueprint for human rights, the document spelled a number of rights. In Uganda, the 1995 Constitution adopted, with very little, if any, modifications, the Bill of Rights under Chapter 4 of the 1995 Constitution. Some 45 years since the United Nations fully adopted them, and some 26 years, that is from 1995, since Uganda did, fierce debates still rage on the issue of human rights in Uganda and indeed across the globe. We know that today there is a huge debate on the issue of bail, whether it should be or should not be given to certain categories of suspects. Now, according to their 2020 ranking, the International NGO Freedom House ranks Uganda as partially free. In fact, Uganda scored 49 out of 100. You know that 49 is not the best mark you can score. For comparison, Kenya is ranked also partially free with 66 out of 100. Rwanda is ranked as not free with 38. That is in civil liberties. Out of 100, Tanzania, Burundi, and the DRC, DRC, and South Sudan were ranked as nations whose data was not available. That could be because they were not cooperative, or simply because the research was not conducted in those particular countries. It's on this continued and always relevant debate on civic liberties that we'll have a discussion today with the group that I have just mentioned from Kyambogo. So without further ado, let me set out the questions. I'll call upon a panelist, ask them a question, and they'll be expected to respond in 5 minutes. So since they say ladies first, let's begin with Gloria. Gloria, in your own understanding, in your own definition, as a student, what do you understand by civic and political liberties?
Yes, thank you, Godwin. What I understand by civic liberties, which are also in line with the political rights, it's a class of rights that protects the individual's freedom from being infringed by government, social organizations, and private individuals, which ensure the ability for a citizen to participate in the political life of the society. And this is in regards without discriminating them undergoing repression, no matter the color, the sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, or disability, and individual rights such as privacy it's such as privacy, the freedoms of thought and conscience, speech and expression, religion and the press, assembly and their movement. So in this, we have freedom and we have rights. However, freedom is something that a citizen can do with or without. But when we talk about the right, it is something that is mandatory to a human being and a human life. That's what I get when we talk about civical and political rights.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gloria, for that submission. So we're going to move to Ivan. Ivan, just how important are civic liberties to you as a student at the university? How much importance do you attach to them?
Okay, thank you. Let me use good afternoon once again. With line with the question, the importance of civic rights to a student and basically to a Ugandan, especially one who is above 18. First of all, we do appreciate that these rights are gazetted by the Constitution of Uganda from as early as Chapter 1, which gives liberties to participation in elections, liberties to participation in governance, and the liberties to participate in society with equal social opportunities and protection under the law, regardless of the race, religion, and tribe. As a student, talk of civil rights or political liberties, we do believe that these are some of the platforms that we should exploit when it comes to information if students are to participate or have a contribution in national development or going forward, because we see that today's education is limited to some of these most serious aspects of society, of preparing a younger generation to society, like civil and political rights and political liberties, to know their rights. So as a student, I feel that the civil and political rights in Uganda are having challenges, especially in the implementation. I, as an individual, have read the law very well of Uganda, from the Constitution, the Political Organizations Act, that is one amended 17th June 2020. I have read the Citizens Compact by National Non-Government Forum NGO, and all these nice ideas about rights and implementations have been brought about. But we do have a challenge here in our country of implementation of some of these civil and political liberties. As a student, I do recognize that some of them exist because as an individual, I do participate, and they are, Uganda being ranked, they are given a percentage of 45%, shows that to some extent they are implemented, but not even to half of the target, half of the performance mark of the target. Yeah, that is what I understand about the civil and political liberties as a student. But going forward, we are really grateful that if such platforms come out, education, induction, and information about people knowing their rights is one of the challenges in Uganda. People are not aware of their rights, the education levels, keep people not possessed to academics and maybe jobs, let they forget their national responsibility, which should be inducted in the education of the country, so that we have an output that reflects the interests of Ugandans, that reflects the morals and values of Ugandans. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, let's move to Mr. Wangusa. You know, Uganda celebrates 58 years of independence this very week. From what you have read and from your own observations, because I believe you are not, you're a very young man as of now. how would you rate us in respect of civic and political liberty since independence, especially on a scale that shows either whether there's progress or there's no progress? Do you think we are moving forward, or do you think we are stuck, or do you think we are retrogressing from your own observations and readings and everything?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Toko Godwin. I would not detach myself from the explicative definitions that my fellow panelists have given, though I would also like to add in something that even from the preamble paragraph of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, it was one of the major aims and objectives that was put forth to exercise our sovereign and inalienable right to determine the form of governance for our country and having fully participated in the constitution making process. And when you also look at the national objectives, you'll find it as objective number 4, that is objective number 5, promotion and protection of fundamental and other human rights. Well, when we talk about civic liberties and the political liberties in Uganda, I would also want to chip in this that civil liberties and political liberties can only be exercised in a liberal government or in liberal governments, which do not commit to a breach either by legislation or judicial interpretation without due process. And the scope may also differ from countries. However, we'll only zero down our civic liberties and political liberties into our country. Well, from the percentage, I would suggest maybe we are like at from the statistics you provided, that is 49%, but I don't think that we have gone as far as that. We are still somewhere like at 40%, basing on the following reasons. The reason as to why I'm saying that we have not yet gone as far as that. The civic liberties and the political liberties that we are talking of, most especially embedded in the chapter 4 of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, rights to freedom, rights to conscience. Those are the positive. We can also have positive liberty and negative liberties. Rights to the fair trial, a right to fair life, a right to privacy, a right to equal treatment. All these ones haven't been put in place on a condition that most of them, when you look at the statistics that I read through, you'll come to understand that between March and May 2020, police arrested and assaulted at least 10 journalists while enforcing COVID-19 related restrictions, taking advantage of the pandemic to further curtail freedom of the press. There are very many ways, very many liberal ways or amicable ways to enforce the SOPs in a country like Uganda. But then when you come into assault and malice and use some sort of background and force on these media personalities, remember we have also got the Information Act. We have the right to the information. So when these media personalities are on ground to get the best of the information that they can give the country, which is our right, then you come to understand that they are really encroaching on our civil liberties. And when you also come to understand that in April of the same year, that is 2020, police arrested Rogers Asingwe of Freedom Radio, they raided his office and questioned him about his discussion of the coronavirus, its origins, and the Ugandan government's lockdown measures. You come to understand that all they were trying to curtail was his freedom of having even a right to a farm. That is curtailing office. He has an office of that Freedom Radio. Then you also come to understand that in October, a combined military and police force raided the campaign headquarters of the former parliamentarian in the 10th parliament, that is his Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. And they ostensibly had to recover the red berets, the campaign that had stashed a part of military uniform. And we come to understand that when we are in these Chankwanzi conferences, all these NRMPs are always putting on the army uniform, even when they're not army marshals or even when they're not army personnel. So how do we come on board to say that a political emblem of a certain political party is a symbol of resistance, of which is not in any of the 5 objectives of the National Unity Platform political party? You also come to understand that in the 2016 general elections, they were marred with the fraud administration by the Electoral Commission and misuse of state resources. Why am I saying this, that the Wamadu is fraud administration? You come to understand that there are some polling stations that got their ballot papers of late and they had to extend the voting to the next day, yet even counting was still ongoing in the process. So you really come to question what kind of the administration of the EC you have. And somebody shouldn't be detached from branding such an EC as a fraud one. Then when you also go to something like the independent observers that we always have, and the civil society and the opposition leaders that have for long critiqued and they called for substantive reforms to the Uganda electorals, they have not yet been given enough attention. And that's why we say that in 2016, when the EC experienced significant technical and logistical problems, everything rose suspicions of malfeasance and mistrust in that very thing. To zero down my point, and supporting the percentage that I had to give to Uganda when it comes to civil liberties and political liberties. Between July of 2018 and February of 2019, the EC suspended CEDU, that is Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda. This is a prominent non-government organization that is in position to be part of the election observation and the voter education. And the EC suspended it, claiming it did not support its claiming that the group is partisan and was undermining the integrity of the elections, of which it doesn't make sense when you make a claim and you fail to prove your point, and still it goes back to beat my understanding. Then if I'm also talk about something like freedom of worship, which is constitutionally protected and generally respected in the practice, but however much is constitutionally protected, it does not mean that it is constitutionally practiced. We have seen very many Muslim clerics being incarcerated, some of them even dying, just because of speaking anything against the government or try to advise the government. They would only want to make. They have also gone ahead even to stop all religious leaders, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Catholic. That if you're in that position, you shouldn't be in position to raise any political statement over government organizations or over government authorities.
Hey.
We can.
Wangusa.
Yes, Mr. Toko.
Let's first hold it there. Let me move to the panelists. I'll eventually come back to you still.
All right.
Okay. So I just Marvin, are you there?
Yes, please. I'm
Okay,
here.
Marvin. Just how important are civil liberties, civil and political liberties, to us as a country, especially given our history. If you know that our history, as the Constitution says, was a history of turbulence, history of war, history of anarchy and chaos. So now that we have these civil liberties and we have entrenched them in the Constitution, just how important are they to us as a country?
Thank you so much, Mr. Toko Godwin. Can you hear me very well?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, my fellow panelists from Kyambogo University. Maybe to add a little on what my brother, Honorable Otahunga, has said, in the human rights treaties, states always have the primary burden to responsibly protect the encouragement of the human rights. They have threefold respect, protecting, and fulfilling human rights. So that burden lies to the government to protect, respect, and to fulfill the human rights. So with all those that my brother has said, we should also remember that Uganda has been part of the main treaties that have been signed globally, and it has the responsibility to protect, respect, and fulfill the implementation of these human rights. But prior to your question, how important are these civil liberties? Civil liberties ensure that people have basic needs, probably. If we have a right to have food, then it is mandatory for a person who is a citizen of Uganda to have food. Vulnerable groups here have been abused. I think civil liberties, if they are not violated, these vulnerable groups are in place to have what they really deserve, to protect their rights. We all know about the disability, people affected with people that are not, people that are physically challenged. These are some of the vulnerable groups here in Uganda. I'll also tell you that civil liberties allow people to stand up to societal corruption. We have seen a lot of incidents in Uganda. If I'm not mistaken, Honorable Kazinda, who was the permanent secretary of the local government, has been taken back as of last 2 weeks, has been taken back to prison for 40 years to serve because of these kinds of corruption. So people in public or people in the country are given the liberty to actually rise up against this societal corruption. And also, there is encouragement of freedom and of speech and expression. You are free to speak whatever you want in society. Therefore, these human rights, if they are not violated, and these liberties, everyone, regardless of the gender, regardless of the color, regardless of where you come from, you are able to rise up and say what you want to say as freedom of expression and speech. We have freedom of practicing a religion that you want. Civil liberties give it to you. We are a society. Uganda is a society that has very many people, mixed cultures, mixed religion, and from both traditional and those that were adopted from the Western culture, to express ourselves religiously. The very many. Why? Because of my fellow brother's point, what he said, that to a certain percentage, you may not feel that 49% is the percentage we are in the rankings of fulfilling these civil liberties, because we still have children in Uganda here that have not accessed education. So, but if we can fulfill these civil liberties, many groups of people will have access to education. That will be protecting the environment. The UN has been having conventions about the environment. The environment has been abused. People in Uganda here, they are using a lot of, now that we are not following the rule of law, people are having mandatory orders from above to let us keep it there. Thank you so much.
Are you recording? Can you proceed? That's awesome. So, Gloria, the next question is yours. You are a lady, and we live in a country where women have for a long time been marginalized. They've been kept at home. We've had so many issues that abuse women's rights, such as child marriages being practiced in the past. When the framers of the 1995 Constitution set out about to do their work, they saw this and they wanted to solve the problem by saying that by making women's rights particularly part of the articles in the Constitution. So I just want to know it from you, as someone that has lived through this period since 1995. Do you feel like your rights are respected more, even despite, even as a woman, or do you feel like there's still more that should be done to ensure that women's rights are protected?
Thank you so much, Godwin. Basing on what I have gotten to experience as a woman, I feel these rights are being upheld and more is being done. When I refer to the constitution that was amended in 2018, that is the Uganda Constitution for the Republic of Uganda, Article 33, Section 1, it says women shall be accorded full and equal dignity of the person with men. And we have figures in the parliament, like the Prime Minister, that is Nabanja, and we also have Minister of Education, who is Miss Janet Kataha Museveni. We've also had Rebecca Kadaga, who was the former speaker. These are tools of inspiration to the female sex within the country that are also acting as tools that inspire the girls to ensure that they work towards their goals and achieve them. And then there's also been different projects that are being carried out to bring up the girl child. Just like me being in school, this is something that gives motivation to someone who is out there. And many programs that are being rooted within rural areas to promote the girl child to also get access to education, which is a right that is mandatory to at least every child who is a citizen. So to me, I think this game is being stepped up, and our rights are being held. And also in reference to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, that's of 1976, which was put into consideration on 20th of March. It states in Article 3, the state parties to present covenant undertake to ensure the equal right of men and women to the enjoyment of all civil and political rights set forth in the present covenant. So this all aligns to the example of the ladies that we are seeing today that are trying to play a big role in the political sector and also other spheres that are running within this country. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Then we shall now turn back to Ivan. Ivan, in your own assessment, who do you consider the main violators, the main perpetrators of violation of human rights in this country? And why do you think that person or that group of people are the ones that?
Okay, thank you very much. The main perpetrators of constitutionalism in this country or human rights, as aligned in Chapter 4 of the Uganda Constitution amended 1995, we have always seen reports come out giving us the percentage, and basically here in Uganda it has been the police, it has been the military. In that line, it has been mostly security forces, militia, and also it has also been as a result of ignorance within our population, because we can say that even as citizens, sometimes we have sat back on our rights by not taking the responsibility and the roles to challenge injustices on human rights, and all to come out and show dissatisfaction when such occurrences of disrespect of civil rights and political rights happen. Basically, as Uganda, as a younger nation, and with the type of leaderships we have had, as stated in our preamble, our leaderships have always come with a lot of militarism and fighting, shedding of blood and such affairs. But going forward, our need is, even if a lot of reforms are made, even including at the Human Rights Commission itself, including at maybe in the acts of electoral reforms, very many ideas have been put across by Ugandans, from NGO Forum, Citizens Compact, the Elders Forum proposed. We have always read these reports from CEDU, Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy, even Center for Constitutional Governance as well. When I assess your reports, there have been very many ideas that a younger country like Uganda, in terms of civil and political liberties, should engage in and implement. But with regard to your question of who is the main perpetrator, I want to say it is security, especially under political influence. Let's frame it like that. That even when a security personnel performs a crime under influence of a politician or under influence of a state, it still goes back, the burden goes to both of them because they are guilty. Offenders of human rights in Uganda, we should say security apparatuses or security personnel and their framework. We come down to as low as the last Ugandan who doesn't take the right to stand up when he sees a violation of human rights in society, when he sees he doesn't come out to condone and abuse such circumstances. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we now proceed and go back to Wangusa. Do you think Ugandans understand their rights? Do you think these rights actually bother Ugandans? Do you think they're concerned if their rights are violated, like Ivan tried to venture on, or do you think they are indifferent? They're just there, whether they're rights, there are no rights, for them they just mind their business. What do you take of Ugandans? Otahunga, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Kindly, if you could pardon me.
Okay, so I said, do you think Ugandans are concerned about their rights? Do you think they invest in knowing their rights, ensuring that their rights are upheld, or they are basically indifferent? They don't care whether their rights are respected or not. Which view do you take of Ugandans? How would you see them?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Godwin. I would like to say that Ugandans are really so much concerned about their rights. However, the only thing that curtails them is the government, because you will come to understand that there's always this statement that is always said, ignorance of the law is no defense. So literally that means if ignorance of the law is no defense, then if you do not know the law, you're a criminal, because you're supposed to know it. If you do not know it, it is not going to defend you. You cannot commit a crime and then you say, I never knew it, so please pardon me. That one cannot be taken into the jurisdiction of our courts here in Uganda. Why am I trying to draw this background? Come to understand that the government has put in place massive mobilization of the fact that every Ugandan accesses this constitution, or the constitution. I mean, just the document. You know, the constitution was far beyond the document to a governing authority for those who. Now, why do I say that Ugandans are concerned about knowing it? You will several times come to understand that those the source of growth that they do not know. Some will be questioned to say if there is direction, we shall go to court. But then these are the same people that go to court even without knowing what do we or what to do. So trying to show interest, but then the government is not picking from where they are and performing.
Ivan,
Also, I would also like to
Ivan, please
question
the microphone. Okay.
Thanks for the protection. I would also like to say that when you go back the Ugandans, at some point it makes me really doubt whether the parliamentarians we have as of now really understand the merits in this constitution of ours that we are using. Because you even find that in the legislature and the executive, they always play blame games. Parliament passed a certain bill, Parliament passed enacted a certain law, yet is the executive blaming the parliament. It is just a legislature. And at the end of the day, we come to understand that this whole blame game is hinged on trying to curtail the freedoms of people. You also come to understand the reason that's why our judicial system is failing. You come to understand that the executive is trying to supersede all the laws that even are embedded or embodied in the judicial organ. Now, Ugandans are so much interested in knowing their law, but then they are curtailed by the government officials who are not giving them a hand and who are also not taking keen interest. That would be my submission on that. And I would also advise that to get rid of this, let the Ugandan government, especially the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, do whatever it takes to make sure that it educates these people on what to do with the law. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be a victim of circumstance just for not knowing what you are supposed to know, but you are supposed to know it, but then the stakeholders in helping you know it, didn't take on the mantle as stipulated in the Constitution. I thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's now move back to Marvin. Marvin, you are a university student just like the rest of the panelists. So I want to know from you, what do you think a university student like yourself can do and should do under these circumstances to ensure that more Ugandans know about their rights, more Ugandans push for their rights, and that human rights are generally more respected in a country like ours?
Thank you so much, Mr. Toko Godwin. And I thank the Civic Space Society for giving us the opportunity to air out the young ideas and views on this. Now, back to the young people. Young people in Uganda, it is true, just like Honorable Otahunga said, we are part of those vulnerable groups of people that do not know about their rights, and they still have the fear inside of them to know about what, because in Uganda here, we have people that fear to go to courts of law. Their rights have been violated. They have been denied the chance. Some of the youths are still in prison prior to the last elections that we had in January. Some of them have resorted to rising up, and something that I would actually recommend. Immediately, this gentleman, known as Bobby Young, was released. He showed dissatisfaction because he was illegally arrested in Masaka, and when he went out, he tried to mobilize fellow youths to actually tell them and show them, to influence them to rise up against the way the rule of law is not being followed. In Uganda here, it is by mouth of a certain few individuals that say somebody has to be taken under whatever illegal measures could be to condemn him of any wrong thing that he has done. So I would advise the youth to actually develop the genes of activism within themselves, because these governments that are violating human rights, they will never hear anything from the court, because they influence the executive, they influence the legislature, and they influence the general public, the security organs. So my advice to the youth, or as university students, we need to develop the genes of activisms like this, like the South Africans. South Africans, because they were so much affected by the white oppression, whatever kind of uh, unfairness or inequality that is imposed to them, they always have to show dissatisfaction. And it is by law, we are okay by the law to actually rise up. We have the right to assemble and make associations that can show dissatisfaction to governments of how the youth are to certain violations of human rights. Therefore, one of the reasons, one of my main points is to actually rise up. And secondly, I advise the youth to actually get much into reading. You know, that saying about when you want to hide something away from an African, you better have to write it. That has to be washed away. A youth that has gone to school, the youth that has attended university, you are not that vulnerable to a person who is in the rural area, who doesn't know about their rights, who doesn't know about the court. Even when they are evicted from their land, they just have to call for help, but rather they are entitled to stand on their feet and look for whatever equality they would get in courts of law, more, and will be exposed. There is a certain African proverb that I know, that a young man who travels a lot is better than an old man in the village. Traveling a lot does mean getting to the bus and move around and see what is happening. It also making much research and reading. If we can have the ability to read, if we can have the passion to read, the youth can rise up and know about their rights, and to some extent, operations shall be suppressed by courtesy of the youth, because we the ones that are studying, we at least have a number of at least 15 million. And when you add on to the youth that are not in in school will constitute to actually a 50% population in Uganda. And if we are able to read and understand the human rights, we are able to probably come over the violation of human rights. And then the other thing is to leadership. As a youth, you are exposed and represent their fellow youth. And because here in Uganda, a group of the physically challenged and probably the youth. Therefore, the youth deserve better than that. It is not our right to be vulnerable. We possess a lot of energy at this younger age that we actually exploit without knowing the human rights. Therefore, if we can have youth that can stand up for other youth, who can venture into leadership in whatever positions, we can have at least a blink of an eye to open the eyes of fellow youth to consider the violation of human rights and wash it away. I submit.
Okay. Thank you for your submission. So we're going to move back to Gloria. Now I'm going to ask about certain specific institutions and we see what roles they could play in the promotion of human rights in Uganda. So let's begin with Gloria, who's going to tell us. Gloria, what role do you think churches and other religious institutions should play or can play to ensure that civic and political liberties are guaranteed and protected better in a country like Uganda?
I beg your pardon, sir.
All right. I said, what role or roles do you think that the church, the mosques, and other religious institutions should play in a country like Uganda to ensure that rights, civic and political rights are guaranteed and protected better?
Yes, thank you so much about that question. So get to realize that's in line with our freedom to worship and about our religion. Yes, the church as whole has to play a bigger role of bringing about unity among all the people that gather to exercise their right to worship. They're supposed to preach about unity and also encourage the citizens to get to know their constitution. We get to realize, based on the submission, one of our colleagues submitted before, he said it is not right for a citizen not to know their law, because you not knowing the law makes you become a criminal. So through the places of worship and through the leaders of worship, they can play a big role in encouraging the people that gather and always attend these prayers to get to know the constitution and get to exercise them, because you get to realize the marginalized groups we have within the country, at times it is because there is no one to stand and tell them this is what they are supposed to be doing. But if we have people within even our religions that encourage us to do something that is of hope for us, then meaning we can stand up and fight for our rights. And even when it comes to the women, just like I had said earlier on, we have also leaders in the church that are women. They can play a big role in spreading out the information that is being carried within our constitution of Uganda, that they have the right to also stand up for those great positions we have within the country and also have the equal rights. So have the right to demand for what the Constitution has constituted for them, just like we've been discussing within our Constitution of the Republic of Uganda that was amended in 2018. A child has a right to education, a child has a right to life. So if they know these things, then meaning none of the citizens within the country or none of the citizens within this different religion, whether Muslim, Catholic, or Anglican, or Seventh-day, would be stepped on and would be affected in a negative way. So at the church, the religions have really a big role that they can play in creating awareness, in sensitizing the people on the importance that we have and how important it is for us to know our constitution and some of the acts that govern our lives as human beings on exercising the civil and the political liberties within our country. Thank you.
Okay. Ivan, I want to move now to you. The cultural institutions are very strong in this country. Basoga, the one of the Basoga, the one of Uganda, all of them play a very critical role in mobilizing the masses, in championing and promoting culture. So how much role can they play, and how much role should they play, and how should they play that role, all those roles, in the promotion of civic and political liberties in Uganda?
Yeah, thank you very much for such a question. First of all, I want to appreciate that some of these institutions, like the cultural institutions, are gazetted under the laws of Uganda and part of the governance systems in Uganda. I want to also comment that some cultural institutions here in Uganda, for example, one here in Central, have stood out to talk of some of these issues. But the problem, as I suggested in one of my submission, has not been less of the voice or less of ideas, is that there has been less of implementation and goodwill by the executive arm of this country. Even when Parliament has amended a very good constitution on most of these rights and acts, it has been that there is a militia in this country, a certain group of people that feel the business of the country shall be executed according to their will. But coming back to your question of the role of cultural institutions in playing the role of human rights or civil rights and political liberties in our country. These institutions, first of all, are our homes, where we come from. They should take a role in mentoring and nurturing leaders, because our society here in Africa, before the coming of the white man or the colonialist, we had leadership, and leadership was nurtured and mentored in society. So we are calling upon these cultural institutions to also take part in administration and come to a center point of nurturing, mentoring, and having a voice when it comes to governance issues of this country. Not to be there, but one of the reasons why they have underperformed is because of their status, especially financially, that they just survive on donations from the state. They are given a car, maybe. That has been the biggest challenge that in Uganda here, our institution frameworks been having a financial implication when it comes to implementing most of their activities as gazetted in their laws or in their design. Cultural institutions have a big role. First of all, is to mentor and stand for the values of Ugandans. Secondly, is to come out and defend the energies of our ancestors that they contributed towards getting this country from the white man's hand, getting its independence. A lot was made. Very many of these cultural leaders have had a contribution before, stating His Excellency the late Mutesa of Uganda, who was one of Uganda's presidents. All these have played a role in Uganda's history. And there is no way we can say we can have much change in the political liberties and civil rights of Uganda without cultural institutions taking center. Because from the start of independence of colonialism, they have been at the center of Uganda's governance problem. But today there has been a divide and rule where most are very vulnerable financially and will be forced to surrender most of their roles and responsibility due to their self-interest in society. So me basically, even if the cultural institutions come out like I've stated and be part of the nurturing, be part of speaking for society, when they see oppression, come out and speak about it, come out and condone it, come out and show dissatisfaction as a cultural institution. When you see that something in society is not moving, by the laws of the country, but also the laws of civil engagement. You should come out and see that you seek a platform of delivering such a voice. But that we need to also see them take part, be involved when it comes to drafting of these legislations and also amending them. Quite often, these people are also tied up that when they basically think issues like consultations and involvement in drafting some of these amendments, they are not brought so close to giving their opinions and roles, and are also found in vulnerable positions when they are time for having a say comes about. Say about we saw what happened here in 2014 about the rights on homosexual acts and what. Also the Family Act about the Family Act also in the Parliament, which is about the Gender and Succession Act. All these are in form of rights because they touch on every Ugandan who is in a family. But how often was the cultural institution involved in the registration drafting of the legislation drafting from the start in terms of consultation, but also in terms of contribution of their ideas with the background that the constitution gives about Uganda. Because Uganda never came from anywhere and landed here. We have a history that these cultural institutions have are more informed of than even the states, because most of the cultural institutions here in Uganda were at the center of colonialism, were at the center of independence. So I really advocate that they should raise up and demand their role and also execute their role in society with their constitutional requirements, but also with the goodwill that they are also Ugandans, and they also advocate for a good Uganda that stands on the rule of law, Uganda that signifies and symbolizes values that attract other people to be part of society. Thank you.
Okay, Ivan. Thank you. Now I want to turn to Wangusa. So, boss, Mr. Wangusa, when you look at the youth, they constitute the biggest chunk of Ugandans in terms of percentage. Some say as far as 75% of the population is below the age of about 35. So how can these young people, who evidently have a higher stake in this country, because all factors constant, they are going to live here much longer, how can they contribute to ensuring that civic space, civic liberties in this country is guaranteed? Because as you said earlier, it's better for us to have than what we had in the past, the wars and the dictatorships. However, I'm going to ask that turn off the microphone. So how can these youths contribute to that? How can they better the country? You yourself being a young person and in that particular category. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toko, Godwin, and the entire Center for Constitutional Governance team. Well, economically, they say that problems of all developing countries lie in the hands of the youth. And here we are, 75% of Uganda's population below the age of 35%. But then, we cannot judge also from economic statistics, which say that between the age of 18 up to the age of 45, those are the people that are still capable and have a lot of abilities to do. We still have the biggest percentage, which is rated to be 63%. And basing on those statistics, it is just a matter of us engaging directly into these activities. And if you are to go back to the civic liberties and political liberties, I myself, being the chairperson of Justice and Constitutional Affairs Committee of the 17th government of Kyambogo University, we have been in position to start up a Know Your Constitution campaign series. This is a campaign that is run online. We are not only zeroing ourselves to, we are not catapulting ourselves to only the guilty constitutions, but also back the Ugandan Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Why are we in position to put this on board? We would want to stop this thing of saying that ignorance of the law is no crime. I cannot say that ignorance of the law is no crime when they will tell me that ignorance of the law is not defense. Those are the statements that are always made by the judges. So if they can say that ignorance of the law is not defense, then that means if I do not know the law, perhaps I have committed a crime against myself, because I must be in position to know what I should be doing constitutionally. why are we in for this campaign of Know Your Constitution? This is a campaign that is there to mandate us and also open our brains and our minds to our constitutional rights. Everybody here would agree with me that a constitution is far beyond just a document and is far beyond just reading that constitution, but this is a governing authority. This is a source of law used by whichever society. When you go back to political liberties, Socrates once said that a man is essentially born a political animal. It did not mean that you have to be in politics or what, and so on and so forth, but literally what he meant by a man is essentially born a political animal, he meant that where a man is, there must be order. So if I met Toko and I met Gloria, I met Masawi, we must have order where we are. And that's why in some religions, let's say the Islamic religion that I'm well versed with, there is a verse that says that any group without a leader, their leader is Shaitan or their leader is Satan. So that is something affirmed Socrates' philosophy of saying that a man is essentially a political animal. And for us to have order existing within us, we must understand that we've got differences, but then we should be in position to conform to our differences and fit in this small country of ours. And we can only fit in our country when we know the rule. We are not going to stop at knowing the rule, but we must be in position to exercise Rodney Eliasu Kwago's legacy or slogan of saying that for him, rule of law, Omrod Wali. That is what he was saying here in the central. There's a difference between rule of law and rule by law. When we talk about rule of law, then we are meaning that we are ruled within the law. But when we talk about rule by law, then that means you're going by the law, just cracking under the cover of the law to exercise injustices, and then you come and put it in the precincts of the law. But that is what we call rule by law. You find you're trying to bring in some crimes, or you're trying to commit an injustice or take the side of the oppressed instead of taking the side of, you're taking the side of the oppressor in any situation of injustice instead of taking the side of the oppressed, trying to say, people do not know the law. They do not defend themselves within the law. What is that? Already you're curtailing the rights and the civic liberties of these people. Now, young leaders also like me need to take on the mantle of engaging in active politics. There is a challenge we always have here in our country of appointing politics. The moment you are in appointing politics, then that means you're going to be taken by the virtue of your office, and power corrupts. It always corrupts those people that are in appointing politics. You come to find yourself, you're catapulted in a certain corner where I'm only going to bend to what Toko, who appointed me in that office, to what he's telling me. But when it is elective politics, where I have got to come and convince this congregation, I get enough political will from them, and they invest in me in those powers, then I might be in position to come and back and say, no, these people elected me to this office, therefore I'm accountable to them. That is that's the only thing we need to do. Taking active participation in elective politics, engaging in these civic liberties and in the academia. By the way, most of the things that is a bottleneck to our enjoyment of civil liberties and political liberties, the academia, we no longer have academic freedom. You come to understand that in December, that was in December 2018, 45 staff members of Makerere University here in Kampala were dismissed for a discipline, but critics argued that the dismissals were meant to silence critics of government within the university. Why were they in position to make sure that they have to make some undermined? Because they were alleging that they were carrying out some surveillance of university lecturers by some officials, and also stopping professors from carrying out these exhibitions, these academic talks. So the moment you try to step on the education of somebody, then you're killing the future of the country. Whoever would want to kill the future of the country would come in, just start from the education. We should be educated the more. The moment I know that this is the right information, then from that information I will have knowledge, and from that knowledge I will have power over everything. Since they say that information is knowledge and knowledge is power, I cannot detach myself from that philosophy. Now, when you also see what has always been on board when these university protests by students, and I must call them civil disobedience. I call it civil disobedience, though I'm a literature student and doesn't apply to that, but there's what we call civil disobedience. What do we mean by civil disobedience? Here we are trying to demonstrate within the law. But what has Uganda come on board to put? POMA. That is the Public Order Management Act, which was at the same time annulled in 2020. That was March 2020, last year. That act was annulled that you cannot have a public gathering to discuss anything political. Remember, anything political means that you're going to take a decision, because decision making lies in the hands of politicians or lies in the hands of the political precincts. So the moment they come to curtail all these university protests and civil disobedience protests, which I may call demonstrations that are lawful within the law, these are students trying to bargain or trying to petition various offices for their rights. So recently you saw our very own His Excellency Sandwich, the 86th Lady President of Makere, was petitioning the Ministry of Education and Sports about very many insurgencies, academic insurgencies at Makere. He was stopped. And why was he just only arrested? Because he was putting on a Ghana flag. So if putting on a Ghana flag is becoming a crime, just identifying yourself that way, then we don't have any future than to remain silent. To remain silent. But then, zeroing down back to your question, what we need to do, let's take active participation in elective politics. Let's take active participation in academia at whatever cost, whether they curtail us or not. See, we have to rise up and stand till we get where we want our feet to take us. Let also the youth be in position to understand that we need the elders. Why am I saying that we need the elders? We need the elders to guide us. We cannot detach ourselves from what society has created. I have always looked at something like a generational conflict. When I'm coming in for a parliamentary position and I'm in position to say, now you think the youth have come here, I'm going to lobby for you, so on and so forth. The moment you start creating that generational conflict, that for you focusing on a certain category of people, that for you, you're a youth, so you want to only associate and work for the youth, then you're creating a generational conflict. We do not need to detach ourselves from society, that we have elders who can guide us. And we also need to make sure that we have that unity. We also need to make sure that we fight for our rights. We don't need to remain silent. We are gifted that we are now in a generation that is quite modernized, has got enough technological space, and we can demand for our rights. There isn't anything that is going to come on board like cyberbullying. When you talk about cyberbullying, it goes back to the academic freedom when they were harassing Professor Steranyans, Dr. Steranyans, sorry, she's not a professor, at Makere just because of what she was trying to put on board. When you start harassing the academia, when the academia is in position to educate the masses, then we are losing it all. We also need to make sure that we engage and also explore all windows of advocacy. You not only need to start up a civil disobedience demonstration, but before you could start it up, because the reason as why we would be in for civil disobedience or lawful demonstration is to allow the public that we requested for this and hasn't been worked upon. So instead of going for civil disobedience, let's first explore other windows of advocacy. How are we going to exploit them? Right, this Minister of Education and Sports, like what our very own His Excellency Bachelor John Senior did. He wrote the Minister of Education. Then again, these are the gaps, but then these are the solutions we have as the students. So he was trying to put on board students' role in nation building. Now, when we come on board and take on that mantle of making sure that we also have a part to play in nation building, like I said in my beginning, that problems of development of developing countries are in the hands of the youth. You come to understand that just only within even the ultimatum that guild leaders had given the Minister of Education, the Minister of Education was in response to adhere and also buy most of the ideas that these guild leaders were putting on board. So that's when we shall be in position to explore our civil liberties and our political rights. And we cannot go further than being prouder to take part in nation building. I thank you.
Otahunga, thank you. We are going to start concluding. Our time is fast spent. So but before we do that, let's first give Marvin his last question. Marvin, I am sure you followed what's happening in the world of this civil society organizations. You know that DGF was closed sometime last year. We know that a number of NGOs were written to rest recently, being ordered to halt their operations for various accusations. And one of them is, for instance, Chapter 4, and a couple of others that engage so much in promotion of civic liberties and political liberties in this country. What does that tell you as a student and as a Ugandan, and how can Ugandans ensure that they fight back, that they ensure that the space is protected for civil society organizations such as CCG, such as Chapter 4 and others?
Thank you so much, Mr. Godwin. Now, I just want to first add something from what Honorable Otahunga said. He has talked about the technological advancement that we are in. Probably we need to expose the culprit, the one who is violating the human rights. When you expose the culprit, such individuals try to deny or correct the act. When people know they will be exposed and subjected to the public criticism, they commit less violation. So you can understand the position of how advanced we are, and now that we have to use this opportunity to actually see that we expose the culprit. These people and others that are yet to commit these violations are yet to stop if we can use, if only we can use the internet well. You know, we have so many ways that youth are using the internet, but that is one rightful way of how we can defend our rights when they are violated. Now, back to you, your point. What can the youth do to see that these civil societies are protected, or how we can fight back? One thing I want to tell you is that we have got to engage the leaders with dialogue. Whenever we engage a dialogue, just like my brother said, Honorable Otahunga, to call upon the responsible parties to be together. Before you go for disobedience, you've got to sit down these people and see what they are up to, what they are thinking. If they are having hidden agendas or violating more rights, that is when we have to take action. But we've got to engage the leaders. We've got to engage the executive, the president of Uganda, to get to know what he is up to with the orders from above, not following the law. So dialogue can produce a lot of things. We can negotiate with them and see what we can do, because human rights are always there to protect the common man. And the common man doesn't know much about the law and fears to face the court. So dialogue would be some choice of our benefit as far as protecting the civil society is concerned. And also, we have got to follow the protocol. Before we go any further, have we consulted the law? Any Ugandan above 18 is obliged to go to court whenever they feel dissatisfied with any of if your rights are violated, you can go to courts of law and get a defense from there. And do not fear to challenge the other side and probably have a win on your side, because it is you whose rights have been violated. Whenever you go to courts of law, there are always the jurisdiction can be on your side, and the government or whoever is violating the rights, he's ever there is a certain amount of money they have to pay, the costs of violating the rights, and the time you've spent in court and all that. So courts of law is one way of how we can probably see that the civil societies can be protected. I beg to submit.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I'll turn to the panelists and we begin concluding in the same order. Let's begin with Gloria. Gloria, you've been impressive tonight, and I just want to hear your final remarks on civil and political liberties in Uganda and how best we should guarantee them. And if you met the president today, let's say, or if you met those in charge, what would you tell them about these rights and how best they can be protected?
Thank you so much, Mr. Godwin. Basing on the conclusion before I come to how best these civil and political liberties can be guaranteed, just like you said, if I met the president today, what I would say, I'd like to begin with my conclusion that in recognition to the civil and political liberties that we have, in accordance to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the idea of free and human beings enjoying civil and political freedom and a freedom from fear, and what can only be achieved if conditions are created where everyone may enjoy his civil and political rights, as well as his economic, social, and cultural rights. This means that the civil and the political rights of a citizen can at times infringe on their economic, social, and cultural rights. So meaning if civil and the political liberties are upheld, then it is going to positively affect the economic, social, and also the cultural rights of an individual within the country. So when I come back to the question on how best we would guarantee the civil and the political space, just like Marvin had earlier on said, today we have a powerful tool of technology, and which is mostly used by us, the youths, and also other people, the elders, and this is where we are advancing today. And based on the status that we have the pandemic within the country, it has got to push us that direction that we have to adopt to the online system of getting to learn things and get to adjust accordingly. So me, if I was to meet the president, some of the things that would be guaranteed is, as youths, as citizens of the country, we should expose the evil acts that are taking on within the civil liberties of the people of Uganda. You get to realize most of these things take place, but then there is no one to stand out to fight for the people. But if we know our liberties very well, then we have the right, like Marvin has said, to go to court, to take some of these issues to court and see how they can be addressed. And then also get to understand that when we air out our views, that the leader should also be able to listen to some of the complaints and some of the challenges and hindrances that we face. Despite of the age, despite of the sex, you get to realize some of the issues cut across when it comes to someone being harassed and someone being treated in a violent way. This is something that wouldn't do well with the health of an individual. So if some of these things are paid to attention through our leaders, and maybe when we raise complaints, just like through the social media platforms, through the dialogues, through the WhatsApp, through the media engagements, this would do something great for the president to take note of how important it is for a citizen to practice their civil and political rights in ensuring that they are not left out in the participation of the different things concerning their well-being. Thank you so much. I beg to submit here.
Over to you, Ivan. Same question from you as you conclude.
Okay. Pardon the question.
The question is, if you met the president today, or if you came in charge of the country, what would you do differently? What would you tell the president to do differently? Or whoever is in charge as far as rights are concerned?
Okay, thank you very much. First and foremost, would want to say that with Right Uganda, our biggest challenge has been implementation, filling the gaps of the law is need by action. We should look into our judicial system. Is having a very big gap is right with human resource. You even see a lot of backlog and such other related cases. We also see that even in our security system, there is still a gap of training, still a gap of qualifications for someone to be a security personnel in this country. Even when we look at the current issues like the bail issue at the moment, all it is not because of the deficiency of the law, but it is the deficiency of implementation of some of these things that are that are more basic because they work as infrastructure, like trainings given to the security personnel who are the number one violators of human rights, induction of the whole country, actually on all citizens in Uganda. We should look at windows to exploit in regards to induction. Can we even have a constitution inducted in languages that people understand better without changing anything in the constitution, but put it in easier ways that people can understand their rights, so that whenever, because the biggest percentage of Ugandans are ignorant about their rights, we may look into creating advocacy through media and what. But even these people violating have shown us that they can switch off that media, they can and even before media come in, such circumstances have always happened. But we need to go back and look for a ground solution, because these affect us all, whether a poor man, a rich man who can afford a smartphone. We all have a role to play if we need a Uganda that represents all of us better in terms of our ideas and our efforts and contribution. So if I met the president today, first of all, I would look into the priorities of the nation. Priorities with regards to the education reforms to provide knowledge and understanding about human rights. Priorities to funding the judicial part of the country, because it is responsible for fixing gaps when all challenging or giving jurisdictions on circumstances where violation on human rights is given. But also to look into, if I am to meet President Museveni in particular, he needs to look into himself, his journey, where he has come from, and where he has taken the country reaching today. Given that the preamble of this country talked about a certain background, we may say Amin violated human rights, but how different has he been as an individual? So he needs self-accountability to the citizens of Uganda in regards to human rights and political liberties. Maybe my concluding statement will be a greater thanks to Center for Constitutional Governance, that creating such a space is also one way of promoting civil and political liberties when young people come about and talk about it. So as Kyambogo University, we are very grateful for such a platform. We pray that Mr. Godwin will extend our thanks to the management, and we are looking forward to creating more working relationships with the Center for Constitutional Governance, not only in discussing but promoting the message rather than just discussing about it, because this shows a goodwill of Center for Constitutional Governance in implementing its roles and objectives, in ensuring that it builds Ugandan younger leaders, but also advocating for image in society that Uganda would be proud of. I beg to thank you and also thank all my colleagues who have been part.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move to Mr. Otahunga, and I'm going to pray that you keep it a minute and then you conclude as the rest are done.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Toko Godwin. And as I conclude, I would like to thank whoever was in to agree that that best definition for political freedom, which might also be called political autonomy or political agency, is just a central concept in history and political thought, and one of the most important features of democratic societies, where we only describe it and we also agree that it is just freedom from oppression or coercion, or the absence of disabling conditions for an individual and the fulfillment of enabling conditions, or the absence of life conditions of compulsion. Let's take, for instance, or for example, economic compulsion in a society. We have come to understand that however much political freedom has always often been interpreted negatively, but then that is from an unreasonable external constraints that are always there in action. But he also it can also have positive exercise of rights and capacities or possibilities for action and exercise of social or group rights. I wouldn't want to go back to that, but to kindly say that we need not only to discuss the message, but also preach and promote the message. And when you recall what Hannah Arendt said about the political freedom, and where he takes back his conceptual origins to ancient Greek politics, and he was saying that in her study, the concept of freedom is historically inseparable from political action. What does this mean? That politics can only be practiced by those who have freed themselves, or by those who had freed themselves from the necessities of life so that they could participate in the realm of political affairs. And it is from this concept that we have the freedom has become so much associated with the Christian notion of freedom, or of the will, inner freedom around everything of the sort. So, in my conclusion, I would say that the civil society in Uganda, which is very active, and some several non-government organizations, should be in position to address these political sensitive issues, the nitty-gritties that might nip us in the balance, trying to pull us back or trying to stop us from going where we want to be. However, I would also extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the Center for Constitutional Governance for getting on this mantle. And it is not only constitutional governance, but we must also understand that, as I said earlier on, constitution is just a governing. If it is set up for constitutional governance, we have got to make sure that all these governing authorities, all these constitutions, the sources of law that we use, every sector or every culture has a constitution that it aligns to, and it works hand in hand with. We should also take on, we exploit all. At the end of that day, we shall be good to at least drink or eat from the same plate of civil liberties and political rights, or political freedoms, or political liberties. I beg to thank everyone and the panelists for quite a fruitful engagement and productive interaction. I've drunk from everyone's pots of wisdom, and I'm so much humbled for the constructive debate from Mr. Toko Godwin. I thank you. God bless us all. Till we meet again. I love you.
Okay, finally, let's listen to Marvin, and then we call it quits.
Well, I will not so much differ from my brothers. We just want to thank you so much for the great opportunity, for hearing out the young views and ideas. You've seen these youth, they have a lot of ideas regarding any perspective. Now, this is human rights. If there is anything for another day, then you would see the Bible brand or and sound minds. But thank you so much. I would like to first thank Your Excellency, Ambassador John Senior, for giving us the opportunity to forwarding us to the Civic Space TV to also air out our views regarding the theme of the day. But I was just thanking you, Mr. Godwin, so Mr. Damiano, for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the panelists for sparing time to be with us today. The debates will proceed. Next week, we shall have another university. And for those viewers, thank you for sparing time. Always participate by viewing these debates. We hope that through these engagements, we can have a better Uganda, and this is our humble contribution as far as that goes. And from us here at CCG and Civic Space TV, we appreciate you, and we pray that you continue to watch these episodes as they broadcast. Also, I want to remind you that there is an episode running on a day, from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, up to Friday and Saturday. So you can always watch the various episodes, the one of the women, the one of the youth, the one of the community that is also hosted by me, to learn a thing or two, to make your contributions. And for all those other debates, except the students' debates, you can also just comment and let us know if you think that there are people we should host, or if you think that you could participate, especially for the community debate, and we can have you on. So from us, we thank you very much. We are seeing that the likes and viewings are increasing. We pray that you subscribe, because the subscriptions are increasing, and then we can all make this TV better and contribute to Uganda. So from me, Godwin Toko, the host of this discussion, I thank you very much and have a good day.